There is a plant growing in roadside ditches, ponds, and marshes across North America right now, where you can harvest 6 different foods from a single stalk. The roots taste like potatoes. The shoots taste like cucumber. The immature flower heads taste like corn. The pollen is pure protein that substitutes for flour. The mature seeds are edible. The young stems are asparagus. One plant, 6 vegetables, available spring, summer, and fall. Native Americans called it the supermarket of the swamp because you could walk into a cattail marsh in any season and walk out with dinner. Settlers learned from them, and cattails fed frontier families through winters when nothing else grew. For 10,000 years, cattails sustained civilizations across every continent except Antarctica. Then something changed. We built suburbs. We drained wetlands. We started buying vegetables in plastic from California, and we forgot that the plant growing in every drainage ditch, every retention pond, every marshy edge of every lake is more productive, more nutritious, and more versatile than almost anything in the produce aisle. This is the story of cattail, the plant that's everywhere, edible from root to seed, and completely ignored by a generation that pays $4.99 for asparagus that cattails produce for free. Welcome to the supermarket you drive past every day. The archive opens 10,000 years ago. Archaeologists excavating Paleolithic sites across North America, Europe, and Asia keep finding the same thing: cattail pollen residue on grinding stones, cattail root starch in food preparation areas, and charred cattail rhizomes in ancient hearths. This wasn't occasional foraging. This was systematic food processing. These sites show evidence of seasonal cattail harvesting going back 10,000 years, through the entirety of human civilization. The Paiute peoples of the Great Basin harvested cattail rhizomes, dried them, and ground them into flour that lasted through winter. Archaeological evidence shows cattail starch processing at sites dating back 8,000 years. The Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, called cattails apakosisan, apakweshigan, and harvested them systematically. They knew that early spring shoots were the sweetest, that midsummer immature flower heads were the most tender, and that fall rhizomes were the most calorie-dense. This wasn't folklore. This was agricultural calendar knowledge as sophisticated as any crop farming. The Iroquois wove cattail leaves into mats, extracted fibers for rope, and harvested every edible part throughout the growing season. European settlers arriving in North America documented extensive cattail marshes managed by indigenous peoples, not wild wetlands, but food production systems. When Lewis and Clark crossed the continent in 1805, they documented cattails feeding them through long stretches when game was scarce. Their journals note Native American guides showing them which parts to eat and when. Across the Atlantic, Europeans were doing the same thing. In Britain, cattails, called bulrush or reed mace, appear in medieval herbals as food and medicine. The Cossacks in Russia harvested cattail rhizomes. Chinese medicine used every part of the cattail plant, calling it pu huang, for the pollen, and prescribing it for bleeding and inflammation. From Siberia to South Africa, Mexico to Australia, wherever cattails grew, indigenous peoples ate them, not as survival food, as staple food, productive, reliable, available across seasons. Then industrial agriculture arrived and convinced us that food grows in fields, not marshes. What makes cattails remarkable? Here's why cattails are called the supermarket of the swamp, because you can harvest 6 different vegetables from a single plant. Harvest number 1, spring shoots, March-May. The young shoots that emerge in early spring taste like cucumber crossed with mild celery. You peel away the outer layers and eat the tender white core raw or cooked. As soon as shoots emerge, 6 12 inches tall. Taste, mild, cucumber-like, slightly sweet. Preparation: peel outer layers, eat inner core raw in salads, or cooked like asparagus. Nutrition: high in vitamin C, beta-carotene. Potassium harvest. Number 2. Immature flower heads, May-June. Before the cattail develops its characteristic brown hot dog top, it produces green, immature flower spikes that taste remarkably like corn on the cob. When? Green flower spikes before they bloom or turn brown. Taste: sweet, corn-like, slightly nutty. Preparation: boil or steam, 10-15 minutes. Eat like corn on the cob with butter. Nutrition: carbohydrates, B vitamins, minerals. This is the harvest that stops people in their tracks. Steam a cattail flower head, and it tastes so similar to corn that people can't believe it's not actually corn. Harvest. Number 3. Pollen, June-July. When the male flower spike, top part, matures, it produces massive amounts of bright yellow pollen. One cattail marsh can produce pounds of pollen in a single day. When? Male flowers shedding pollen, early to midsummer. Collection method: shake or brush pollen into bag. Taste: mildly sweet flour-like uses. Substitute 25–50% of flour in pancakes, bread, muffins. Nutrition: 20% protein by weight, complete amino acids, high in beta-carotene. Cattail pollen is one of the most protein-dense wild plant foods in North America. Native Americans used it to thicken soups and stretch corn flour. Harvest. Number 4. Young lateral shoots, spring-summer. The side shoots that sprout along the rhizome taste like hearts of palm or bamboo shoots. When? Throughout growing season. Taste: tender, mild, slightly nutty. Preparation: peel and eat raw or sauté. Nutrition: fiber, minerals. Harvest. Number 5. Rhizomes, roots, fall-winter. The underground rhizomes are the survival food. Dense, starchy, potato-like roots available even in winter. When? Fall through winter, when starches are concentrated. Taste: starchy, slightly sweet, potato-like. Preparation: must be processed. Peel, mash, wash to separate fibers from starch. Nutrition: high calorie density, carbohydrates, some protein. Yield: one mature plant can produce 1 to 2 pounds of starch. This is the traditional winter food. The rhizomes can be dug even from frozen marshes. Native peoples would extract the starch, dry it, and store it for months. Harvest. Number 6. Seeds, late summer, fall. The mature brown cattail eventually bursts and releases seeds with downy fluff. The seeds are edible, though labor-intensive to process. When? Mature seed heads. Preparation: separate seeds from fluff. Tedious. Uses: ground into meal or cooked like grain. Nutrition: protein, oils. The Nutritional Breakdown. Let me give you the numbers that explain why this matters. Cattail rhizomes. Calories: 200–250 per 100 gram of processed starch, comparable to wheat flour. Carbohydrates: 70–80%, higher than potato. Protein: 6–10%. Fiber: high, though separated during processing. Cattail pollen. Protein: 15–20% by weight. Complete amino acids, rare in plant foods. Beta-carotene, extremely high, gives bright yellow color. Rutin, a flavonoid with anti-inflammatory properties. Cattail shoots. Vitamin C, 20 millimeters per 100 gram. Beta-carotene, 1–200 mcg per 100 gram. Potassium, 370 millimeters per 100 gram. Almost 0 calories but nutrient-dense productivity. 1 acre of cattail marsh can produce 140 pounds of rhizome starch, comparable to 6 to 7 bushels of corn. 10 to 115 pounds of pollen. Continuous shoot production spring through fall. This productivity happens without tilling, planting, fertilizing, irrigating, pesticides, any human input whatsoever. Cattails are C3 photosynthesis plants growing in ideal wetland conditions. They're among the most productive food plants on Earth per acre. Why we forgot the disappearance of cattails from American consciousness happened in phases. Phase 1. Wetland drainage, 1850–1950. As American agriculture industrialized, wetlands were viewed as wasted land. From 1780 to 1980, the United States drained 53% of its wetlands, over 110 million acres, to create farmland. Cattail marshes disappeared. The food production system that sustained indigenous peoples for 10,000 years was literally drained and plowed under to grow corn and soybeans. Phase 2. Suburban development, 1950–1980. Post-war suburban expansion drained remaining wetlands for housing developments. Retention ponds replaced natural marshes, engineered to manage stormwater, not produce food. When cattails grew in these retention ponds, which they naturally do, they're pioneer species that colonize disturbed wetlands. They were viewed as unsightly, signs of poor maintenance, things to be cleaned up. Homeowners' associations prohibited them. Landscaping crews removed them. The aesthetic of manicured grass extended to water features. Phase 3. Supermarket dependency, 1960–2000. As supermarkets became ubiquitous, food knowledge divorced from place. Why harvest cattails when you can buy asparagus, corn, potatoes, and flour at the store? The knowledge broke in a single generation. Grandparents who grew up in the Depression knew cattails were edible. Their grandchildren growing up in suburbs didn't even notice cattails as plants, just as marsh weeds. Phase 4. Regulatory barriers, 1970–present. As environmental regulations protected remaining wetlands, a good thing, they also made cattail harvesting legally complicated. Many wetlands are now protected ecosystems where plant removal is prohibited. This is important for conservation. Wetlands are critical habitat. But it also means that even if people knew cattails were food, harvesting them is often illegal without permits. The Wetland Paradox. Here's the complication. Cattails are food, but they're also ecosystem engineers. What cattails do for wetlands? Filter pollutants from water, stabilize shorelines against erosion, provide habitat for birds, fish, insects, prevent algae blooms by absorbing excess nutrients, sequester carbon in marsh soils. So harvesting them raises questions. If you harvest rhizomes, you disturb the marsh. If you overharvest shoots, you reduce plant vigor. If you remove cattails entirely, you damage the ecosystem. But here's the nuance. Sustainable harvesting helps wetlands. Cattails can become too dominant. They're aggressive colonizers that can crowd out other wetland plants, reducing biodiversity. Many wetland managers work to reduce cattail dominance to restore plant diversity. Selective harvesting, taking shoots, flower heads, and some rhizomes while leaving the population intact, mimics the indigenous management that created the productive cattail marshes European settlers documented. The problem isn't harvesting cattails. It's the all-or-nothing approach, either completely protected or completely ignored as food. How to identify cattails safely. Cattails are distinctive, but there's one dangerous lookalike you must know. True cattail, Typha species, edible characteristics. Tall, 4 to 9 feet. Long, flat, sword-like leaves, ribbon-shaped, not pleated. Distinctive brown cylindrical flower head, hot dog on a stick. Grows in standing water or very wet soil. Leaves have spongy interior, fold and tear a leaf. It's full of tiny air chambers. No strong smell. Species? Typha latifolia, broadleaf cattail. Most common, Typha angustifolia, narrowleaf cattail. Edible. Typha domingensis, southern cattail. Edible. All Typha species are edible using the same methods. Toxic. Lookalike. Iris species. Poisonous, do not confuse with cattails. How iris differs. Leaves are pleated, ridged. Fold a leaf. It has a distinct midrib ridge. Leaves are not spongy inside, solid, not air-filled. Flowers are showy, colorful, purple, yellow, white, not brown spike. Strong, unpleasant smell when crushed. Rhizomes are toxic, cause severe vomiting, diarrhea. The critical test: fold a leaf in half. Cattail. Spongy, air-filled, tears easily, no midrib. Iris. Solid, distinct ridge midrib, doesn't tear easily. If you're ever uncertain, don't eat it. Iris. Poisoning is serious. Visual identification. Summary: cattail. Safe, flat ribbon leaves, spongy inside, brown hot dog flower. No smell, grows in water. Iris. Toxic. Ridged leaves, solid inside, colorful flowers, unpleasant smell. Also grows in water. When in doubt, wait for the flower. Cattails produce unmistakable brown cylindrical heads. Iris produces showy petaled flowers. They can't be confused once flowering. Where you can and can't harvest. This is critical. Not all cattails are safe to eat, even if correctly identified. Do not harvest from roadside ditches near heavy traffic, lead contamination from vehicle emissions, road salt accumulation, oil and chemical runoff, industrial areas, heavy metal contamination, chemical pollutants concentrate in wetlands, agricultural runoff areas, pesticide, herbicide contamination, fertilizer accumulation, nitrates, sewage treatment, wetlands, bacterial contamination, pharmaceutical residues, stagnant water with algae blooms, toxic cyanobacteria, blue-green algae, can produce liver-nerve toxins, protected wetlands without permits. Many natural wetlands are legally protected. Harvesting may be prohibited, private property without permission. Safe harvesting locations. Clean natural wetlands with proper permits. Your own property, if you have cattail marsh. Rural ponds and lakes. Clean water. Away from roads. Parks with harvesting programs. Some allow foraging. Friends' properties with clean water features. Water quality test. If you're uncertain about water quality, you can get water tested through county extension offices or private labs. Test for heavy metals, lead, mercury, cadmium, E. coli, bacterial contamination, nitrates, pesticide residues, clean water, clean cattails. How to harvest responsibly. General principles. 1. Never harvest more than 10% of a population. 2. Leave the rhizomes intact unless harvesting them specifically, and even then, leave 70% plus. 3. Cut, don't pull. Pulling damages the marsh. 4. Rotate harvest locations. Don't return to same spot repeatedly. 5. Harvest from abundant stands. Skip small populations. Season-specific methods. Spring shoots. March-May. Wade into shallow water or marsh edge. Cut shoots 2 to 3 inches below water surface. Take only 1 to 2 shoots per plant. Peel away outer layers on site. Return to marsh. Take inner 6 to 8 inch white core. Immature flower heads. May-June. Look for green flower spikes before they bloom. Cut with 2 to 3 inches of stem. Leave at least 50% of flower heads for pollination, seed production. Pollen, June-July. Bring paper bag or container. Gently bend flower head into bag. Shake or brush pollen loose. Leave flower head intact. Harvest during dry weather, wet pollen clumps. Process same day. Pollen spoils quickly. Lateral shoots, spring-summer. Feel along rhizome for side shoots. Cut rather than pull. Leave main plant intact rhizomes. Fall-winter. Warning: this is the most disruptive harvest. Dig carefully in fall when growth has stopped. Take only lateral rhizomes, never the main connecting rhizome. Leave 80% plus of rhizome system intact. Best done in very abundant stands where thinning helps diversity. How to prepare each part. Spring shoots. Raw. Peel Peel to inner white core. Slice thin like cucumber. Add to salads. Mild, crisp, refreshing. Cooked. Sauté with butter or oil, 3 to 5 minutes. Steam like asparagus. Add to stir-fries last minute. Pickle like asparagus. Immature flower heads. The corn on the cob. Method: bring pot of water to boil. Add flower heads, still on stem for handle. Boil 10-15 minutes until tender. Drain. Butter and salt like corn. Eat by scraping with teeth. Texture is softer than corn. Flavor is sweeter. Alternative: steam instead of boil, 15-20 minutes. Grill after parboiling. Cut kernels off and use like corn in recipes. Pollen, processing. Spread on screen or paper. Dry in warm location, not direct sun. Store in airtight container in freezer. Use within 6 months. Cooking: substitute 25% of flour in any recipe. Adds golden color and protein. Pancakes: 1/4 cup pollen plus 3/4 cup flour. Muffins, bread, waffles all work. Don't use more than 50%. Changes texture too much. Nutrition boost: add tablespoon to smoothies. Mix into oatmeal. Dust on salads. Lateral shoots: peel like spring shoots. Eat raw or lightly sautéed. Use in place of hearts of palm rhizomes. Advanced. Warning: processing cattail rhizomes is labor-intensive. Traditional method: 1. Wash thoroughly to remove mud. 2. Peel outer skin, dark layer. 3. Chop into chunks. 4. Mash or grind. 5. Add water and work with hands. 6. Fibers will separate from starch. 7. Strain through cloth. 8. Let starch settle. Looks like white mud. 9. Pour off water. 10. Dry starch. Can take days. 11. Powder when dry. Result: white starch similar to potato starch or arrowroot. Uses: thickener for soups or sauces. Substitute 25-50% of flour. Mix with wheat flour for bread. Coating for frying. Is it worth it? Honestly, for most people, no. It's very labor-intensive for modest yield. But if you need high-calorie food from the wild, or you're doing historical food preservation, it's valuable knowledge. Spring shoots and flower heads are much easier and more rewarding for modern foragers. What you're actually getting. Let's be practical about yields. 1 hour of spring shoot harvesting can collect 2 to 3 pounds of shoots, equivalent to $15 to $20 of asparagus. 1 cattail marsh visit in early summer. 20 flower heads, dinner for 4-6 people. 2 cups of pollen, months of baking use. Total market value if you bought equivalent, 40-50 season-long harvesting from 1 local marsh. Spring shoots, multiple pounds. Summer flower heads, dozens. Pollen, 1-2 pounds. Total food value, hundreds of dollars. Time investment, a few hours over season. Cost, 0. This isn't subsistence. This is supplemental food that's genuinely useful, nutritious, and free. The modern cattail paradox. We've created a strange situation, what we have. Cattails growing in every retention pond, roadside ditch, and marsh across the country. Millions of pounds of edible shoots, flower heads, and pollen produced annually. 0 harvest, 0 use as food, often removed as maintenance. What we do? Import asparagus from Peru, $2.99, $4.99 LB. Buy corn from factory farms. Purchase protein powder, 20 to 40 LB, when cattail pollen is 20% protein. Pay landscapers to remove cattails from decorative ponds. The disconnect: free, nutritious, abundant food growing everywhere, treated as marshweed, removed, ignored. Meanwhile, food prices increase. People talk about food insecurity. We spend billions on agricultural subsidies. We drain wetlands to grow crops that are less productive per acre than cattails. Why? Because cattails don't fit our food system, can't be mechanized, can't be monocultured, can't be commodified, can't be patented, can't be controlled, grow in waste spaces that don't generate profit, Cattails represent the opposite of industrial agriculture: wild, free, abundant, available to anyone willing to harvest them. In a system built on scarcity and control, that's not an opportunity. That's a problem. Why it matters now. Climate change is destabilizing agriculture. Droughts, floods, extreme weather make crop yields unpredictable. Cattails thrive in conditions that stress other crops. Flood tolerant, obviously, they grow in water. Drought resilient, deep roots access water table. No irrigation needed, grow in marginal lands unsuitable for traditional crops. Actually, improve land over time, build soil in marshes. As traditional farmland becomes less reliable, the plants growing in waste spaces become more valuable. We've spent 200 years draining wetlands to grow corn. Maybe the 21st century requires recognizing that wetlands produce food as wetlands, without drainage, without destroying habitat. Sustainable cattail harvesting might be a model, food production that enhances rather than destroys ecosystems. The legal landscape. Cattail harvesting exists in a legal gray area, generally legal. Private property, your own land. Private property with permission. Public spaces where foraging is explicitly allowed, generally illegal or restricted. Protected wetlands, federal, state, local, national state parks, most prohibit plant collection. Nature preserves, private property without permission. Gray area, roadside ditches, technically public right-of-way, but usually not enforced. Municipal retention ponds, varies by locality. Unposted public spaces. Best practice: 1. Check local regulations. 2. Ask permission when possible. 3. Join foraging groups that have arranged access. 4. Harvest from abundance, never take rare populations. 5. If confronted, be respectful and leave. Some municipalities are starting community foraging programs that designate specific areas where wild food harvesting is allowed. This is the ideal model. The knowledge transmission. While American culture forgot cattails, indigenous communities and some immigrant groups maintain the knowledge. Native American communities continue traditional harvesting in areas where they have access and legal rights. The knowledge never broke. It was just pushed to the margins. Southeast Asian immigrants, particularly Vietnamese and Thai communities, often recognize cattails immediately. In Asia, similar species are cultivated and sold in markets. Eastern European immigrants from wetland regions, Poland, Russia, Ukraine, sometimes carry knowledge of cattail reed harvesting. Survivalists and foragers have kept the knowledge alive in books, courses, and communities, though often framed as survival skills rather than regular food. The information exists. It just doesn't flow through mainstream culture. What you can do. Step 1. Learn to identify, find local cattail stand, safe location. Positive ID, flat leaves, spongy interior, brown flower head. Rule out iris, no ridge, no smell, spongy leaves. Mark the location for future seasons. Step 2. Start simple. Try spring shoots first, easiest, best taste. Peel to white core, taste raw, like cucumber. If you like it, try cooking. Step 3. Progress to flower heads. June, early July. Cut green flower heads. Boil like corn. This is the harvest that converts skeptics. Step 4. Collect pollen. Midsummer, shake into bag. Dry and store. Try in pancakes. 25% pollen, 75% flour. Step 5. Share knowledge. Teach friends, family. Post about it with proper safety warnings. Start conversations about wild food. Step 6. Advocate. Support community foraging programs. Encourage sustainable wild food education. Push back on, cattails are just weeds. Thinking the supermarket analogy. Why supermarket of the swamp? Because in one cattail marsh, across one growing season, you have produce section, spring shoots, asparagus alternative, flower heads, corn alternative, lateral shoots, hearts of palm alternative, baking aisle, pollen, protein-rich flour supplement, rhizome starch, potato starch alternative, staples, carbohydrates, rhizomes, protein, pollen, shoots, vitamins, shoots, pollen, all growing from a single plant species, requiring zero agricultural inputs, available for thousands of years in your backyard. That's the supermarket, and we drive past it every day without even slowing down. The future of cattails. Some forward-thinking researchers are reconsidering cattails. Food security programs in developing countries are researching cattail cultivation as marginal land food production. Permaculture designers incorporate cattail marshes as food-producing water filtration systems. Sustainable agriculture researchers study cattails as high-yield crops for wetland agriculture. Food historians document traditional cattail foodways to preserve knowledge. But mainstream agriculture and food culture still treats cattails as marshweeds. The shift will come from the bottom up, individuals remembering, harvesting, sharing, not from corporations or government programs. Because you can't monetize something that grows wild, abundant, and free. What we lost for 10,000 years, humans knew. Where the cattails grew, when to harvest each part, how to prepare them, that marshes were food sources. 2 generations of supermarkets erased that knowledge. Now we have productive cattail marshes everywhere, zero harvest, rising food prices, food insecurity conversations, while the supermarket grows in every ditch. If this made you look differently at the marsh you drive past every day, subscribe to A Garden With You and hit the bell. Every like and share preserves knowledge that disappeared in 2 generations. Next time you see a cattail marsh, you're not looking at weeds. You're looking at asparagus in spring, corn in summer, flour all year round, and potatoes underground. You're looking at the supermarket. Free, abundant, and waiting. The next forgotten food will be revealed soon.